The newest FPS Locker 2.2.0 beta on a modded Switch showcased that running at full clocks, Switch 1 can do tons of games, even at 120 FPS. Is it time for Nintendo to unlock some of that potential? Yeah, just at the right point where you're releasing a more powerful sequel. Maybe a dock mode, performance mode with higher clocks is a way for developers to target cross-platform releases, or maybe dock mode only games like they did with 2D only games in the latter part of the 3DS life. I mean, this is a lovely conceit, isn't it, Oliver? The concepts.
Yeah.
I mean, there is a lot of overclocking headroom on the, I think it's the Marico switches in particular, the second generation versions. It's a lovely idea just to, have like an overclocking option built in, then it just works. But every time we've talked about this being an option for a new Switch model, it never happens. And now we've got Switch 2 happening. So the concept of a more performance Switch in any way, even as a software unlock, it's a nice dream to have, but it's not going to happen, is it, realistically?
Yeah. I think it's really helpful to kind of like take the 10,000 foot view and think, what is a console, right, with these questions? Because with a console, you're really giving up a lot of customizability over like clock speeds and things like this. Usually that's not exposed to the end user. But fundamentally here, Nintendo makes choices to balance battery life, performance, and ease of development for games. There aren't too many hardware configurations. And they've standardized the Switch around a number of relatively modest CPU and GPU clock speeds for portable mode and docked mode. And it doesn't make sense for Nintendo to disrupt those standards willy-nilly, unless I could see there being a situation where something's radically changed in the kinds of games that people are bringing to Switch. But as far as I'm concerned, like the Switch has always had big issues with like PS4 era software, issues that will hopefully be resolved on Switch 2, but it's definitely had those issues for a while. If you go back to 2019, 2020, you can see a lot of games with big, substantial issues on the original Switch unit. Those issues have existed for a long time. They're not new issues, and I don't think anything's really changed radically to compel Nintendo's hand on this and cause them to break the glass and break out the fire extinguisher and say, we need to push the CPU clock to 1.78 gigahertz. I don't think that's quite happened. And for Nintendo's first-party stuff, which is also what they care about a lot, that's generally been fine. I don't think they've had any issues there. So yeah, just in general, like I think Nintendo, they've balanced battery life, they've balanced performance, they've already made those considerations. I don't think they want to break that just as this generation is ending. I don't think they have a really compelling reason to do so. The third parties that can't run games on Switch 1 have mostly given up on it, and I'm sure are working on Switch 2 titles. And the first party studios working with Nintendo that still have to release games on the Switch, hopefully those will mostly be okay. I say mostly because there is an upcoming Pokemon game, so I can't guarantee that, obviously, but hopefully they'll mostly be okay.
Yeah, I think this is going to be one of these situations where it's going to be down to the modding community using hacked switches to do this kind of thing. I think the other thing, of course, is that if you do want higher performance for your Switch 1 games, Nintendo has a product for you, and potentially it's Switch 2. We can talk about that, actually. That was that was kind of like a bit of a problem, wasn't it, this week, where Nintendo basically saying, well, if Switch 2 is too, was it the price point that was the issue?
It is a price point.
Yeah. If Switch 2 is too expensive for you, don't worry, we've got a product for you. It's called Switch 1. It's very much reminiscent of the whole Dan Matvick Xbox 360, Xbox One thing from back in the day. Yeah, I think it's sometimes that execs just don't really read the room.
No, I mean, if people are frustrated about some sort of price point, you should probably explain why the price point the way it is, rather than giving them sort of like fake alternatives. It's not Switch 1 isn't a Switch 2. Like, what's the point? Yeah,
which they already own. Most likely. That's just totally nuts.